Well, again, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's BU Alumni Career Webinar. Oh, excuse me. There we go. Now I've lost my script again. I keep doing this to myself. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's BU Alumni Career Webinar, Women and Making the Most of Mentoring. My name is Jeff Murphy. I'm a member of the Career Programs team here in the BU Office of Alumni Relations. Today's webinar is offered to our 352,000 alumni around the globe and all of our current students. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals, and we aim to do this by providing everyone with access to a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. Again, we have some alumni and students joining us from some very far away places. Please know that we really do appreciate your participation in this and every program that we offer. Before I introduce today's speaker, just a couple housekeeping notes from me. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Friends website, which you can find at www.bu.edu/alumni. And our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions that you may have, and you're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A box on Zoom. So similarly, like we just did with the chat, hover over your screen, your toolbar will pop up, click on Q&A, go ahead and type in your question at any time, and we're going to make sure to save time at the end so that we can get through as many as we are able to. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, BU College of Arts and Sciences alum, Dr. Rose Opengart. Dr. Opengart is a career coach, author, and professor with a corporate and academic background in human resource management. She teaches and coaches and utilizes her passion for work fit and happiness to help people have the most career success possible. She earned her PhD in human resources and organizational development and also holds professional certification in human resources. She's published HR and career articles and also a book entitled Find Your Where to help job seekers find the right place for them. Her book is available now on Amazon and in any good bookstores. And she is also the owner of Interviews That Work and can be found on her website at www.interviewsthatwork.com. Dr. Opengart, Rose, we are so excited to have you back again. You've done a few presentations for us before that were very excellent. And so we are always delighted to have you back. Thank you for being here today. If you want to go ahead and share your slide deck, awesome. You can go ahead and we'll kick things off.
That's great. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I don't think you left me anything to say. So I was going to start with the introduction, but you pretty much covered everything. As he said, my passion is really just helping people with career development and be happy at work. So as an academic, my research is career development oriented, which could include mentoring, as well as many other topics. So I wanted to start today with a poll so I could really help address your needs and your questions for today. So what do you hope to learn today? So just click on whatever seems appropriate there to you. And while you're doing that, I can just again mention that I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions. So if by any chance I miss what you're hoping to learn, I'll get to it at the end when you ask your question.
Get about 2/3 of folks that have figured out which way they're leaning here. Give it just another second. One of the things I always do when I'm buying time on these polls is you want to make any predictions about where the poll's going to land? What do you think will most bring people here?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I'm so excited too to hear that we have people here from 9 countries. And I have to acknowledge that I'm speaking from an American perspective. I definitely know more about the situation about mentoring and the workplace for women in the US, but I'm still hoping that wherever you are, that this will be a helpful presentation.
That's a great point. And surprisingly,
I was wrong. It's not all of the above. A lot of people, who should I choose as a mentor and how do I approach? Terrific. I have a whole slide on that. So I'm really glad that so many people want to hear about that. We'll also cover what exactly is a mentor and how to make sure it's a successful relationship. So all of these will be addressed, and I'll absolutely make sure number 2 is addressed since that's the most popular one. I don't know why, but I'm having trouble advancing the screen. There we go. So what is a mentor? You have heard a lot of terms, I'm sure: coach, sponsor, mentor, and of course, therapist. But what really is the difference between all of that? Well, a mentor is a little bit more of a telling, this is how you should do things kind of a role, whereas a coach is more questioning. So I'm a career coach, for example, and I might help you by asking you, what is it that you're really looking for? What makes you happy? What are your goals? So there's probably a little more questioning than a mentor situation. It's also more broad than coaching. So I specifically focus on career coaching. I have a friend that's a health coach. So those are very detailed and specific. Whereas mentoring is really more about how to help you be successful. It's much more broad. A mentor advises the mentee. And what is a sponsor? A sponsor is more of an advocate. So really, if you had to pick one, I suppose a sponsor is more important, but they're both important because you need somebody to advocate for you in the workplace, but you also need somebody to tell you what to do to be successful if you don't know the answer to that. So the mentor might suggest ways to work more effectively. They might suggest ways to expand your network, whereas sponsors give you those network connections. So there's a slight difference there. A therapist, on the other hand, is somebody who's licensed. Actually, that's a little bit misleading because a coach can be certified. So it's not that they're not professionally prepared, it's just a different word, licensed and more clinically focused in a therapeutic situation. So why is this topic important? It obviously is important, or BU wouldn't be hosting an entire month dedicated to the topic. But just in case you need a little bit of reiteration on why this is important, specifically for women. And if there's men on this presentation today, I'm not trying to disengage you or leave you out, but I'm going to explain why it's most important for women. It's important for men, but because leadership is predominantly male, and traditionally organizational cultures have been male oriented, it puts women in a harder situation to advance with less role models to admire, to follow, to copy. So it's more important to help women get to that leadership position. And why today it's more important? Because COVID has disproportionately increased home and childcare for women. There's been a lot of research shown that it really has affected women in academia. Women aren't publishing as much as men in the last 2 years. In any type of job, gender inequalities have increased because they're doing so much more at home now because they had kids home for so long, trying to balance teaching their kids while they were home versus, focusing completely on work. So now women are left in a even harder position than they even were 2 years ago. And even 2 years ago, women were more, there were more gender inequalities in the workplace. So if you are on this presentation because you're somebody in the workplace who can help create mentor programs, this is for you also. This talk is for you as well as women who want mentors. So why else is it important? Lots of research has shown that mentoring increases confidence, increases emotional intelligence. That's what the EI is here. It increases job satisfaction. Actually, for both mentors and mentees, it increases job satisfaction, which is very interesting. It helps women navigate gender-specific obstacles. And that is why it is extra important for women. I did some research on this just last night because I wanted to see if there was any statistics specifically about how it helps mentors in addition to mentees. And I was really pleased to see that as a result of mentoring, both mentors and mentees are promoted more often. And the last two sets of statistics came from a Forbes article, which I realize isn't scholarly, but it was very interesting and shouldn't be dismissed. So for both mentors and mentees, there are a lot of benefits to mentoring. So what should you do if you want to engage in a mentoring relationship? And some of what I'm about to tell you, I also tell my career coaching clients. I think it's really important that step one is to know yourself. Whether you're looking for a job or looking for a mentor, you can't find what you're looking for if you don't know what you're looking for, right? So start with knowing yourself. Many job seekers and mentor seekers don't know what it is they want. And if you want a mentor to help you get promoted or to help you get to a job, you have to know what that job is that what are your career goals? What is your job target? And your job target usually consists of what is the function, like accounting or HR, that's the function, what industry and what geographic location. And you should know this whether you're looking for a job or a mentor, because if you can find a mentor in that function, in that industry, and in that geographic location, it will help you that much more get to where you want to go. So another thing you should know before seeking out a mentor is, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your interests, skills, and values? Why is this important? Because you want that mentor to help you further develop strengths and also help bring your weaknesses up to strengths. Everybody has both strengths and weaknesses. I hate that word, but it is what it is. So know yourself and know your goals so that you can ask your mentor to help you reach your goals and develop your strengths. Same with the 2-minute pitch. It's something you need for a job search, but also really helpful to seek a mentor because they want to know who you are. When you approach somebody, you want to be able to say, here's who I am, here's what I need, here's why I want a mentor. So your 2-minute pitch basically says, what do you have to offer that other people don't? Why would they hire you? Why would they want to mentor you? What's the most important thing you want them to know about you? What are your key selling points? And to whom are you pitching means if you were going to go and tell somebody you met in an elevator why they should hire you or why they should mentor you, think about who you're talking to, because you want to be able to relate to them and talk to them with their vocabulary, and so that they can understand and with relevant topics. So the last one is really more job oriented. What do they ideally want in a candidate? But all this is relevant not only to job search, but mentoring search, because you want to quickly summarize who you are, why you want them. So here in the poll is the beginning of what most of you were looking for: how to choose a mentor. First of all, find somebody who's good for your needs. So again, you need to know what those needs are before you can find out if that person is going to meet your needs. Kind of like dating, right? I think I relate so many things to the job search and the working world to dating. You have to know what you want in order to find it, whether that's in a person or a job, a mentor. And this seems so obvious, but so many people don't know themselves. And it's fascinating to me. You have to know what you want in order to get there. So who's going to help you reach your goals? Who's going to help you grow? Here are some things to consider when choosing your mentor. How much experience should they have? What industry are they in? And this is important because when job hunting, they really want you to have industry experience. And some people say, well, that's silly. If I can do marketing, I can do marketing just as well in the pharmaceutical industry as I can in manufacturing. In some ways, yes, in some ways, no. So they really want you to have industry experience. So I would look for a mentor in the industry in which you want to get to or in which you want to be promoted, because they will have very relevant knowledge for you. Age might correlate with experience. It might not, but these are just factors to consider. Now, gender is the biggest one. And I also did some further research because the idea fascinated me about, if you're a woman, what's better, a woman mentor or a man mentor? And actually, there's pros and cons to both. But you should also think about who are you most comfortable with? If you're a woman and you're most comfortable being mentored by a woman, then that's what you want to look at. So these are 4 very important factors to consider when choosing a mentor: experience, industry, age, and gender. And I say she, but really it could be she or he. Has she attained specific goals that you were aiming for? That's really important. If you want that person to help you reach those goals, clearly that person should have already reached those goals. So they can tell you how they did it, what they think they did right, or maybe even what they think they did wrong. So you can learn from their experience. Ask yourself, can this person guide me toward my professional goals? That's probably the most important question. Does she or he share your definition of success? So know what your definition of success is in order to determine if you share that. And that's, you might say, why is that important? Because if you want that person to help you be successful, you have to know that you're both defining success in the same way, or else you won't reach your goals. I think that makes sense, right? Here's an interesting one. Is this person happy in his or her career? I threw that in there because I don't think I'd want to be mentored by someone who's miserable in their career. I just don't think they're going to be the best mentor because of their attitude, and their effort might not be there if they're not happy. So, does this person have wisdom and connections? So that's kind of a combination of sponsor, as we talked about, and mentor, but really that's going to benefit you the most if you pick somebody who not only has knowledge to provide to you, but also connections to connect you with the right people to reach your career goals. That's the ideal person. All right, so I like to throw in a little humor. Oops. I hope everybody can see this because I can't. The bar is covering the comic, but I hope you can see it. Jeff, can you see it? All right, gotta throw in a little humor once in a while. So you may be on here because you're seeking a mentor. You also may be on here because you're in a role, whether that's HR or management. You may be in a position where you can create a mentoring program in your company. So I actually looked up because I wanted statistics for myself. And 60% of companies currently offer formal mentoring programs, which was actually much higher than I thought it would be. So that's good news. So what's the difference? A formal mentoring program is something set up by an organization. An informal mentoring opportunity is something that you created for yourself just because you met somebody and you thought they'd make a good mentor and you asked. So what's the difference? Which is better? That's a trick question because there really isn't a better. It just depends what you want. An informal mentoring relationship might feel more natural because you picked it, versus the company setting you up with somebody. Informal mentoring is mentee driven. It was your idea as the mentee. You picked the person and you get to tell them how they can help you. It's also more flexible because you're defining what you want and you're asking the questions. So that may make informal mentoring sound better, but formal mentoring set up by the company has lots of benefits also. It's been shown that it's better for supporting diversity. Why? Because people tend to naturally drift towards people like them. So if you pick a mentor, you're more likely to pick somebody that looks like you. Whereas a formal program set up by an organization, they may make an intentional decision to have different types of people, whether the diversity is by gender or by race or by age. And that has pros and cons. You may not feel as comfortable with that person, but diversity in teams has been shown to be much more effective because you learn from other people's perspectives. So formal mentoring programs actually are better for supporting diversity and inclusion efforts. Formal mentoring programs also can help connect people in different business units. So if you work in HR, you really don't know enough about how, let's say, how the marketing people do their work. If they connect you in a formal mentoring program, you can learn from somebody in that department. And not only do you learn how to be successful, how to interact with others, but you may learn more about their business unit as well. And so that's helpful. And lastly, formal mentoring programs can be more easily tied to organizational objectives. This is good for you if you're doing this to try to get promoted within your company. And it's good for the company because it helps people develop and reach goals that the company wants them to, that are good for business objectives. So there's a win-win there. So really both formal and informal mentoring have advantages. Okay, here was the other question it seemed like a lot of people wanted to ask. How do you ask someone? That's difficult, right? And it might be as hard as asking somebody to go out on a date. Again, I love to relate work things to dates. I don't know why, it just really seems to work. So what do? Start by scheduling an initial conversation. See if the person can go out for a cup of coffee and just chat, or lunch, or if they're in your workplace, just schedule a meeting. So what is it that you want out of that relationship? It will be a much more effective relationship if you go to them and you say, this is what I need out of the relationship, A, B, C, D. And then the person knows what to focus on. So again, it's going back to know yourself and know what you need. That's going to help you get what you need. It seems logical, but yet people don't seem to think about these things. So the reminder is good. Also, let me step back for a second. If you know what guidance you're seeking, it'll help you pick the right person, because you want to make sure that person will be able to satisfy your objectives. Confirm your willingness to do the work. So you're saying to the person, I need your help. I would love for you to help me reach these goals. And I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to get there. That would reassure the person that they're not wasting their time. And very important, acknowledge and respect the individual's time. You don't want to make them feel like this is going to be overwhelming and it's going to take them away from their own job. So you're asking them to do you a favor, but at the same time, acknowledge and respect that they have their own job to do and that you're not going to take up too much of their time. So I call this next step a mentoring action plan, or a MAP. In order to make the mentoring relationship the best it can be, the most effective it can be, come up with this plan beforehand. And you can even do this before you meet that person. When you schedule that initial conversation, you can have this with you. What are the skills you want to develop? What type of organizational knowledge do you need to develop? And how will you know when you have successfully accomplished what you're trying to accomplish? So it's like writing down goals. They say if you write down the goals, you're much more likely to achieve them. Well, how do you know if a mentoring relationship is a successful one if you don't have those goals identified ahead of time? So the map really helps to make sure it's a successful relationship, because you know ahead of time what you want to accomplish, and then you can look back at it and say, yes, I've accomplished this, and this. It just helps you be organized. So what activities would help you to develop the most? And then if you have all this answered in time for that initial conversation, it will also help you ask that person if they're really the right person for you. And by the way, you can have more than one mentor, because it may be that one mentor would be really fantastic for 2 of your 4 goals, but not the other 2. And a different person would be really fantastic for the other 2 goals. That's okay. You can have 2 mentors. If they're willing, take it. So all of these are questions that would really help the relationship be much more successful than if you didn't answer the questions. Okay, I'll just leave it up for a few more seconds in case you want to copy it, and I'll take a quick drink. hard to talk for an hour straight. Even me, who's a talker. You need to be open to feedback. And I put this last on its own page because this is the most critical piece. Be open to feedback and whatever your mentor has to say. One of my very first career coaching clients years ago was somebody who was very stubborn, and I was very new to this. And so I felt, I don't know, I felt very uncomfortable giving him this feedback, but I came to the conclusion that my job is to help him, and I can't help him if he's not going to hear my feedback. So here's a man who was 20 years older than me. And I looked at him and I said, you're going to have to stop arguing with everything I say if you want to be successful. You're going to have to be open to the feedback I'm giving you. And he was stunned for a second, and then he thanked me, and he realized, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I've been so negative, and okay, I'm open now. Give me feedback. And I gave him the feedback, and then he thanked me. And it was very uncomfortable to do. Not uncomfortable anymore. That was one of my first jobs. Now I'm really good at giving negative feedback, but I'm just teasing. The point is, if you're asking somebody for help, be open to whatever help they say. Okay. And here's another comment along those lines. Your advice is very important to me. So I wrote down exactly what I want you to say. Problem about this is I can't hear people laughing, so I'll just laugh and pretend it's y'all laughing. Okay, so you want to make sure to have the best mentoring relationship. We talked about some things that you should do, but here's a nice summarized list of best practices. You want honest, two-way exchange. So not only should the person be able to give you whatever feedback they think you need, but you should feel comfortable asking any question that you want to ask. Now, this is a tricky one. If you have different views on things, which can happen, have a respectful debate. It's not going to be a good mentor-mentee relationship if you can't be honest with each other, if you can't be respectful with each other. And most likely there's going to be some issue where you have differing views. So be honest, be respectful. Critical assessment of ideas. What that means is that both parties, the mentor and the mentee, really should be open to questioning something that's said or questioning behavior. Again, it just goes back to being honest and having respectful discussions and questioning. If you don't think something sounds like a good idea, then it's okay to question it respectfully. Now, here's something that I find interesting. They say that research shows that best practices include a leveling of the power gradient. And that might be hard for you if you're new, if you're just out of college and you're asking somebody who's in their 50s and they're in a leadership position, you're going to feel, like they have all the power. And it shouldn't feel that way if you want to be comfortable enough in the relationship to ask questions. So what that means, a leveling of the power gradient, is that each person should feel equally responsible for the success of the relationship and equally comfortable in challenging anything said and in any discussion. Respect for limits and boundaries is something that I shouldn't have to say, but you definitely want a relationship that doesn't take advantage of anybody in any way. And that could mean time. Everybody's mind probably goes to taking advantage sexually. That's happened, but that's not necessarily what I meant. I meant respect for any limits and boundaries. Time is a big one. Commitment to confidentiality. That is something you really should go over when you have that initial conversation, when you're talking to somebody. You have to be able to ask them anything and say anything and know that it's not going to leave that room, or else you're not going to get the most out of the relationship, right? So this is what is suggested. Meet at least 1 hour per month for at least a year. Now, don't, cut off a relationship because they say, I can't do it that long. And you might not want to say in the initial conversation, I need you for at least a year. But you could say, I'd like to meet at least 1 hour per month. And if I need it for a year, will that be okay? Because you don't want to scare them off right away. But at the same time, you want to make sure they understand that you are going to put time commitment into this to be successful, and you're hoping they can too. And if you want to, I can send you the research I found, which shows that this is a productive relationship for both mentor and mentee, because that might help people agree to do it. Here's another important thing. You want a mentor that will help you grow, not make you into a mini-me. And that's tricky, because you're asking the person, how did you get to this place? If you're asking somebody who's a leader, for example, what did you do to be successful? And so it's really tempting to copy them and do everything they did. But at the same time, that might not be you. You might want to take their wisdom and incorporate their wisdom into you and how you're comfortable being, rather than just being a mini-me. And there's been a lot of talk over the last several decades about how when women first went into the workplace, they wore these suits, even when the shoulder pads were common. And unfortunately, they're coming back. I think they're so ugly they shouldn't come back. But I think it was meant to make women look more like men. And you know what? Probably when women first started entering the workplace, that wasn't a bad idea. But now we shouldn't have to do that anymore. Women should be able to dress in a way that makes them look like a woman conservatively for the workplace. But if you have someone that says you need to dress like me, you need to act like me, that's probably not the best mentoring relationship. You need to take what they have to offer you and incorporate it into who you are, the best you that you can be. So that goes with this too. Mentoring is about more than encouraging people to be just like you, as they all look the same with almost the same haircut. Okay, so now if you're thinking of being a mentor, you need willingness to share your skills, knowledge, and expertise. And there's some thought out there that women are not as interested in men as being mentors, and that they worked hard to get where they got, so they're not nice. Well, I've heard a lot of people say that women are the worst bosses. So I actually did some research on that as well, because I was wondering if there were statistics. I keep saying that. I like data. You might have gathered. And so this research that I found that looked at this actually showed that women were just as willing as men to be mentors and just as willing to help. So I think that's just a myth, and I'm happy to hear that's just a myth. So you want a mentor that's willing to share skills, knowledge, and expertise. You, as a mentor, want to be somebody that's a good listener, compassionate, and understanding. So while I'm talking to you as a potential mentor, those of you that are potential mentees should also realize that these are things you're looking for in a mentor. So you want to be flexible, caring, and supportive. A positive attitude and a positive role model. And that goes back to my question, is the person happy? Because there's no point in getting a mentor who's unhappy. It's not going to be a productive relationship. Obviously, if you're going to be a mentor, you want to take a personal interest in the relationship. You really want that person to succeed. Don't say yes because you feel like you should out of obligation. Only agree to be a mentor if you really are going to be supportive and caring, and you want that person to be successful. So provide constructive feedback. So there's really, a difference, for example, in saying, it'd be more effective if you did it this way, than saying, God, you stink. There's a big difference. And pick somebody who knows the difference between that. So you want your mentor to give honest feedback, but tactfully. Sorry, one more comic. All right. Hope you enjoy all my little attempts at humor thrown in here. So we did recommendations for mentors. Now recommendations for mentees. Be open. Please be open to feedback. That's why you're doing this. Be willing to try different ways of doing things and new things. Be engaged in the process. This seems obvious, right? But just a reminder, don't bother to get into this relationship if you're not going to hear them. Create a clear agenda for each meeting. You want to do that so that you're not taking advantage of your mentor's time, and to make sure that everything you want to accomplish gets accomplished. It's a way to make sure to meet your needs and also make best use of your mentor's time. And this is really the same as being willing to accept constructive feedback. You must be willing to take action on the advice. There's no point in them giving it if you're not going to do anything about it. So I think perfect timing, 12:40. But before we get to questions, I mentioned that I'm a career coach. So, and Jeff also mentioned my book, Find Your Where, Turn the Tables, Negotiate Your Success, and Do Work in Life on Your Own Terms. I have had a lot of people who are just not, a lot of clients who are just not happy at work, and it makes me sad. You spend 90,000 hours over the lifetime at work. You should be happy. You spend more time at work than you do at home with your spouse. So it should be the right place. And I found over the years, I've now been a career coach for 20 or so years. And I kept hearing the same thing, that people were not asking questions in the interview. If they did, it was because they thought they should, or they thought it would make a good impression. But the questions were really meaningless. They weren't asking them with a purpose. So my book is full of questions to get you the information you need to make sure it's the right place for you. And that's what you want. You want a good fit. And if you want a place that is going to be open to mentoring and career development, there's a whole chapter in there about how to make sure to find that place. So I had to put that plug in for my book, but now I'm open to any questions you may have.
Rose, thanks. I'm glad that you have the book cover on your slide here, because I also noticed it was behind you, and I was going to ask you to hold it up so everybody, yeah, there you go. Everybody can see, know what to look for in their local bookstore.
Yes, it's a giant poster there.
Yeah, this was all good stuff. Thank you so much for doing it for us today. A couple good questions have come in, so while we get to those, I'll just remind everybody, take advantage of this opportunity. Let us know about your questions about mentoring, finding the right person. We've got a real expert here, particularly somebody who's done some research, which I always find very impressive. Speaking of that research, Rose, does any of your advice or any of your experience working with clients, does any of that tell you that there might be differences in mentoring from industry to industry? We did get one question wondering if you could offer any tips on approaching mentoring relationships for somebody who wants to quit corporate and go into something more entrepreneurial.
Sure, find somebody who did just that, because then they can tell you the challenges that they encountered in switching, because I did that myself, and I can tell you that it's very different. It's very freeing in some ways. It's also less freeing in some ways, because you have to find your work. So if you're going to make that switch, I would definitely look for a mentor who already has their own business, who's already an entrepreneur, and talk with them. I see a comment from Ruth that I want to highlight, because she's right. Change the language from weakness to challenge. I should have said that. You're absolutely right, Ruth. What are your strengths and challenges?
That's great. Ruth also asked a great question. I think you mentioned the word sponsor earlier on in your presentation. Can you just articulate how you see the difference between a sponsor and a mentor?
I did that in slide. Should I go back?
Yeah, perhaps Ruth was asking, but it was perhaps before you got to that.
In the very beginning. Well, let's ask her if her question was answered, because this is going to take me a few minutes. There we go. Now, let me hide the chat thing. So a sponsor is more about pulling you along by doing things for you. Like a sponsor advocates for their proteges. So a sponsor might be somebody who goes to a colleague and says, I have a person you should meet, and sets up that meeting. Whereas a mentor would say, here's how to approach somebody in a leadership position and set up a meeting. So the sponsor is more active. We're doing it for you. And another example is a sponsor might give proteges active network connections, whereas the mentor suggests ways to expand the mentees network. So a sponsor is likely to be somebody with a lot of experience who's already worked in the industry, in the field that you want, who already has a lot of connections there, who can really give you a leg up. And I think the ways to approach obtaining one are probably the same. But when you make that initial meeting and you're telling them what you're hoping to get out of the relationship, that's when you might say, I'm really looking for a sponsor more than a mentor, somebody who can, and then fill in the blank, who can connect me with people, who can bring me to a meeting, whatever it is that you're hoping to get out of that relationship. Can we ask her if I answered her question? I'm gonna make sure I did.
Yeah, Ruth, let us know if you feel like you're understanding the difference between sponsor and mentor now that we've gone back here a bit. Mandy asked an interesting question in the chat. So this to me is kind of like about sort of flipping the script on mentoring. She's interested in setting up a mentoring program or opportunity in her small business as it grows. Mandy says, we hire a lot of very young women in the beauty industry, and the thing they need mentoring and coaching on the most is professionalism. Do you have any suggestions for guided mentorship in our situation? So almost like reverse mentoring. How do you make that happen?
I'm sorry, I was switching screens for a second, and I think I missed part of the question.
No problem.
They're hiring people into their company who
need some mentoring.
And so basically you have to tell them
help with professionalism.
Why not set up a formal mentoring program? Like I was talking about the differences between formal and informal. It's something the organization creates. So pair the new people with somebody who's experienced, who illustrates the behaviors that you want that person to, and pair them together. And if you're doing it for all the new people, it wouldn't call out one new person to say, hey, you really need help, which would be embarrassing. You could just make a program for all new people if there's enough. I'm not sure how big the company is.
Yeah, she mentioned it's a small business. So Mandy, if you'd like, let us know if we're talking about like a real small shop with only a few individuals or not. And while we maybe wait to get some clarification from you,
you could do a class too. If it's really small, and they only have one or two experienced people, and let's say 3 or 4 new people, do like a class. The 2 experienced people can say, here's some of the behaviors that we have found to make new people in this business more successful. So there's different options, I think.
Ruth, thanks for letting us know that you feel like you got your answer. I'm glad. Barb asked a question. This one's interesting. My company has a formal assigned mentoring program. On her 3rd try, she's found a great mentor who is male. However, there's also a culture of men and women not socializing. So the opportunity to go out for coffee or lunch together is frowned upon. She's finding it to be a struggle. Do you have any comments for Barb on how to manage that?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The company arranged it, but they're making them feel uncomfortable for talking together.
She's saying the culture of the company, of the organization, is such that men and women socializing together people are kind of raising an eyebrow at that.
Yeah, so they really need to change the culture if they want this mentoring program to be successful. Like, that's needless to say. But why not then carve out time in the workplace to meet? If it's frowned upon to go out together outside of work, why can't you do it at work? Maybe you can have lunch together in the office, or just meet for 30 minutes at the beginning of the day in the office. I'm wondering if that's possible.
Great. So Mandy wrote back, her small business has 30 employees, so not a small shop. by my standards. It's pretty even between experienced employees and new hires, which is great. Oh, so they've set up matching, but I think the idea of having a more formal program with talking points for each meeting would be very helpful. And she adds, thanks for doing this today, which
You're
is,
welcome.
I add that as well, Rose.
And just think about your organizational goals while you're building the program so that that can help you reach your organizational goals as well.
Another question came in. This comes up a lot in some of our webinars across the board, no matter what we're talking about, is, you mentioned earlier, Rose, about, to have a successful mentorship, you need to know what to ask for. You need to know what you need. Mm-hmm. This is taking things in a little bit of off the path of where you've been on today, but do you have advice for people that need help figuring that out? What their needs are, what their skills and strengths are. So, what is your favorite resource for identifying one's abilities to match what soft and hard skills need to be worked on, need to be built?
Yeah, so some workplaces have this formally built into their performance review, and they'll do what's called a 360, which means everybody around you, that's why it's called a 360, people above you, people below you, and colleagues review you. And that way you can find out, how are you doing in the eyes of people you report to? How are you doing in the eyes of colleagues and maybe people who report to you, which I think is a great way to find out. If they don't have something like that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking. I mean, I think you could ask a colleague or somebody who knows you well and say, I want some honest feedback. You know me from the workplace. What are some things you've observed that I do well? And some, here's for Ruth, and some challenges that I could work on, and say, I want honest feedback so that I can better myself. And I actually had somebody do that recently, a friend that emailed, and she said, I'm emailing a lot of different people who I know from different venues, different avenues, and I'm asking you for feedback. And I was really impressed. She wasn't told to do that. She just said, I want to better myself. So I want honest feedback. And yeah, I was really impressed with that. So that's always an option.
Well, Rose, this was awesome. I always enjoy having you. I think you do a great job of sharing, kind of reviewing concepts that people might already know, but making them think differently about how, their understanding of something. And it's just always great to have you. And so on behalf of all of BU and our alumni around the world, thank you so much for doing this today.
You're welcome. And in case people have more questions, I don't think I'm screen sharing anymore.
Well, yeah, why don't you go ahead and put that back up with your contact info. I will also, I'll send everybody a follow-up email either tomorrow or Friday, and include ways that people can reach out to you. You got your Gmail address there on your website. I'll share that as well.
Because people always think of a question after it's over.
Yeah. I'll probably go ahead and drop in a link for people to buy your book on Amazon as well.
Oh, thank you. There's soft cover and a hardcover. So
great.
Which one you want to link to, you choose. The soft cover is cheaper.
There you go. Well, thank you again, Rose. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank all of our donors who support the university. We appreciate your support so much. And if a great thing about this talk today is that it allows me to plug BU Connects. Which, if you are not yet a member, you're going to want to join. BU Connects is our relatively new online networking and mentoring platform. We make it easier than ever for you to find nearly 10,000 available mentors, BU mentors around the globe. We have that many people who've signed up offering mentoring. There's over 15,000 members, many of whom have made themselves willing to help in a specific set of ways or willing to mentor. And just by going to the directory and searching people's names by where they work, what industry they're in, you can find people who've said that they're willing to be a mentor. So making that whole ask can be even easier for that informal relationship. We also in the future will be running many more formal mentoring programs that alumni can participate in, both as mentors and mentees. All of you here today, I also want you to sign up as potential mentors for our students. Certainly, they will all benefit from hearing about your experiences. So buconnects.com is the place to do that if you haven't already signed up. I'm going to appreciate having you all there. I hope you'll join us for our next career webinar, which is next Thursday, March 23rd. We're going to be offering 5 hot marketing trends for 2022, how to win big. So for any of you who work specifically in marketing, or at least in a communications kind of capacity, or have to do some of that for your job, I hope you'll join us now by signing up on our website at bu.edu/alumni. Thank you again, Rose. Always great to have you. I really enjoyed your chat today.
Thank you. I enjoyed all the great questions.
That's some great ones. And thanks again to everybody, wherever you might be around the world. Hope you have a great day or a great evening. Take care.